Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope you're well. I hope you're well. I know you're well. It's Sunday morning, the 22nd of January 2017. My name is Richie Allen. Hope you're well. I'll say that again. I hope you're well. Hope you've had a good weekend. This is Sunday View, by the way, live from Manchester in the UK. At least it's live right now. Over the next 40 minutes or thereabouts, I can never time it. Going to have a look at the big stories in today's British Sunday tabloids and broadsheet newspapers, as well as looking back at some of the bigger stories of the week, although it generally tends to be Trump, doesn't it, this week? So lots about Donald Trump, Theresa May, even a bit of climate change coming up. Prince Charles has written a Ladybird book. Might have told you that. Pretty sure I did tell you that a few days ago. Lots to come on the programme then. As usual, tweet at Richie Allen Show, email richie@richieallen.co.uk.
For critical information ignored by the mainstream media, log on to davidicke.com/headlines now.
Broadcasting live from the great city of Manchester, England. This is the Richie Allen Show on davidicke.com.
Yes, the truly great city of Manchester in England, where, as usual, it's grey, it's overcast, and it's pretty cold, but it's not raining right now, so there might be a chance of stepping out a little bit later on. I gave you the Twitter details. Do stay in touch with me. Obviously, when we're live, this came up during the week, by the way. The phone numbers that I give out, I've got to, when we do phone-ins, never stop ringing, even when we're not on air, which is kind of funny, really, because they're not monitored. They are connected to the mixing desk, the radio broadcasting desk in the studio, and nobody monitors them. Why would they? I mean, this isn't the BBC here. This is just plain old me, at least this side of the Irish Sea. I obviously have help from my producer and one or two others, but generally it's me. So you don't be ringing those numbers because nobody is ever going to answer, especially not me. Right. Lots of contacts from people who dropped messages to me on Facebook and who tweeted me, whom I've known for a few years through various radio programmes, who went to see David Icke at the Helix Theatre in Dublin yesterday. And they were thrilled, they were amazed, and they were stunned and staggered at times by what they saw. By all accounts, the reception that David and the Worldwide Wake Up team received from the great city of Dublin, the incredibly great historic city of Dublin, of course, was wonderful, and it was a fantastic day for everybody. I'm delighted to hear that. My producer Claire Calvi was there with her daughter. They enjoyed it. I don't think they'd ever seen anything like that before, outside of seeing bits and pieces on social media, but I think they were very impressed and came away, I think, motivated. I think most people who go and see it come away motivated and determined to make small changes, which aren't small, I shouldn't say small, but to make significant changes, which might appear to be small, in their own lives and in their own community, changes which make a massive difference in the grand scheme of things. So congratulations again to David and the team. And if you were at the Helix Theatre yesterday, I believe you had an awesome and an awe-inspiring day. A few weeks off now before he heads back into Europe. To find out where the Worldwide Wake Up Tour moves on to, just go to davidicke.com or the website is theworldwidewakeup.com and go and see him. It's quite extraordinary. That's all I'm going to say on that. Interesting old weekend I've had. Quietish weekend. Went to see La La Land on Friday. Now, I've never been a fan of musicals, and I think a lot of that stems from when I worked at Waterford Local Radio for a few years in various jobs, producing, presenting and all of that. I was unfortunately at times subjected to the company of musical, how would you call these people? I suppose the types of people that are involved in musical societies. The men and women who work in, who produce and who act in musical societies. And I didn't like them very much, and they didn't like me very much. Didn't like them. I didn't like their attitude, their lovey type behaviour and all that crap. I've never liked musicals. That being said, La La Land is not the most offensive film I've ever seen. At times it's it's a beautiful thing to see at times, the cinematography and all of that. I'm not going to go all arty now and pretend I know what I'm talking about, but at times it looks fabulous, and Emma Stone is a gifted actress. I mean, Emma Stone is a gift to acting, and she's an amazing actress. I'm not so mad about Gosling. I think he's a bit wooden, and I think he gets away with murder because of the way he looks. But anyway, what the hell do I know? So La La Land, 4.5 out of 10. Not the worst thing I've ever seen. If you like musicals, ignore my review. You'll think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. All right, let's move on then. You don't know what you're going to get on Sunday View. Reviews of films. The future Mrs. Allen enjoyed it at times. I think she kind of agreed with me. She'd have given it a 6, maybe 6.5. But there you are. Right, the papers are obviously dominated by the Trump inauguration today, and that's what we're going to talk about for the first few minutes of this programme. And last week was all about Donald Trump. Of course it was, no matter what you opened paper-wise, no matter what programme you tuned into, it was all about the Donald. So let's have a look at the Sunday papers. What are the Sunday papers saying? Let's start with the Sunday Mail. Why not? Good place to start. The headline on today's Sunday Mail is "Cut out your sexist insults, Mr. President." That's the headline. Cut out your sexist even insults, Mr. President. What's it about? Well, Theresa May will be meeting Donald Trump on Thursday and will take the opportunity to tell Trump to quit the misogynistic tweets and insults. Yeah, of course she will. She won't. What a load of claptrap that is in the Mail today. It just ain't going to happen, is it? Now, May has been talking to the BBC this morning, Andrew Marr, and the flagship BBC Sunday morning programme, which is called The Andrew Marr Show, interestingly enough. And she spoke about this and other things. Here's a few minutes, just a brief couple of minutes of what May and Marr talked about today. Have we got it? We have.
What did you make of his inauguration speech?
Well, I think his inauguration speech had a very clear message to it, which is the message that he gave during his campaign about putting America first. But if you think about it, any leader, any government, as we do here in the United Kingdom, when we look at any issue, we ensure that we're putting UK's interests and the interests of British people first.
And you're going on Friday to talk to him, is that right?
Yes, I'm going to be at the end of the week, and I should be meeting him on Friday and talking to him on Friday. And there'll be many issues for us to talk about, because obviously the special relationship between the UK and the US has been strong for many years. We'll have opportunity to talk about our possible future trading relationship, but also some of the world challenges that we all face, issues like defeating terrorism, the conflict in Syria.
Because this is a man that Britain both needs, but is also incredibly divisive. Your own policy chief, George Freeman, said that the inauguration speech you've just praised was deliberately divisive and confrontational and showed the politics of hate, and a lot of people agree with him.
Yeah. What I think is important is that when I sit down with Donald Trump, I'm going to be able to talk about how we can build on that special relationship. He's already said to me that he wants to see a very strong relationship between the UK and the US going into the future. There are issues that we will work together on in the future, the importance of NATO, for example, as I've said, defeating terrorism. These are issues where we share the challenges, we see the threats, and we have worked together in the past and will in the future.
A whole lot of clichéing going on. She didn't say very much there. Definitely avoided the questions put by Marr, who didn't press her very hard, really. The same old crap. Shared purposes, shared values, and all that garbage. So what else did she say? Was there anything interesting to come out of that today?
You are now one of the most prominent women political leaders in the world. 2 million women marched against what Donald Trump had said about women yesterday, all around the world. Now, you must be torn, as a sense, between somebody who wants to get a good deal from Donald Trump and somebody who is going to talk truth to this particular version of power. Which is it going to be? Will you raise the issue of his treatment of women when you talk to him?
Well, first of all, I've already said that some of the comments that Donald Trump has made in relation to women are unacceptable. Some of those he himself has apologised for.
It's a bit different.
When
you sit down,
when I sit down, I think the biggest statement that will be made about the role of women is the fact that I will be there as a female Prime Minister, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, directly talking to him about the interests that we share. I've got a track record.
You won't raise it directly.
Andrew, I've got a track record. If you look at everything I've done in terms of defending the interests of women, the work I've done on modern slavery, on domestic violence and so forth, I'm proud to be only the second female Prime Minister that the United Kingdom has had.
No, mate, I won't be raising it with Donald Trump on Friday or Thursday. You know, she looks more and more like Palpatine. Is that his name? The guy who becomes the Emperor in the Star Wars films. As the days go by and her eyes sink back into her head, she becomes more like the Emperor. She really does. I'm not just saying that for a giggle. What a load of old tosh. I was thinking about this today and all those hundreds of thousands of people marching yesterday. What difference would it make? This nonsense. You know damn well what he is. You know what sort of personality he is. What difference does it make? Hundreds of thousands of people marching because they're pissed off. Oh, women's rights might be in danger. Why aren't you marching about food banks? Why aren't you marching about disabled people going to PIP assessment hearings and being told your benefit is being stopped, driving them to suicide? We don't march about that. Oh, we march about women's rights. Listen carefully. I'll march with any woman. I'll march with any woman or any man who's being oppressed by anybody for anything. But the nonsense of this, what a waste of energy, what a waste of time yesterday. Now, they went on to talk about NATO. I won't subject you to that. May said that Trump would be as committed to NATO as anybody else. Bollocks. You know, why is that bollocks? Do I disagree? No, I don't. I believe that Trump, the ultimate flip-flopper, the ultimate liar, of course America will be as committed to NATO as they ever were, no matter what Trump is saying. Now, I'm still on the papers. In the Sunday Mail today, there is an exclusive. Prince Charles, the heir to the throne, has written a article, if you want to call it that, about climate change in the Mail. He wants climate change to feature in weather forecasts, this jug-eared clown. He really does. We'll come back to that a bit later on in the programme. I want to talk about that a bit more in more depth. Now, in the Sunday Observer today, the headline, Sunday Observer, hundreds of thousands of US women unite to voice defiance over Trump. And in the paper, it also says 100,000 women marched here against Trump. I mean, Jesus, you know. Women's rights are under threat because of him, hence the marching. Nothing to add to what I said previously. Sunday Express, the headline, Theresa May is my Maggie. Of course, Trump never said that. But anyway, that doesn't stop the papers printing this nonsense. The special relationship and all of that jazz, that's what you'll see a lot of today. You'll hear a lot of this. Special relationship. It is special. When you go around the world killing millions of innocent people, rendering orphans of children, making millions more homeless together, that's a special relationship, that. Sunday Telegraph headline, what's it saying? Trump's New Deal for Britain. So the Sunday Telegraph has kind of put a positive spin on the inauguration of Trump. It's saying that trade deals between the US and the UK, or a trade deal, I should say, will be done, will be agreed, will be signed very, very soon, and it's all hunky-dory. George Soros. Oh, what an evil bastard. George Soros. If she's Palpatine, or whatever his name is, I have no idea what Soros is. But Soros has been talking at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And the UK Business Insider, Ben Moshinsky is the journalist. He's been reporting on what Soros is saying. And Soros has been saying that Theresa May won't last very long as Prime Minister. Why? And I'll quote you directly what Soros says. It's unlikely that May will actually remain in power. Soros continues, she already has a divided cabinet, a small majority in Parliament, and I think she will not last. Why is Soros saying this? Soros is saying this because he is saying that the UK is in denial about the negative economic effects of leaving the European Union. Soros is saying that the catastrophes that we were promised, which haven't yet materialised, will materialise soon and for the rest of your life. We're all screwed, says Soros. Living standards are going to drop, and at some point people will change their minds about leaving the European Union. Now, the Business Insider is reporting on this, Moshinsky, the journalist, but it's actually taken from an interview with Bloomberg Television and a presenter called Francine Lacka. May is on her way out. She won't last, and the UK will soon feel the negative economic effects of leaving the European Union, says James Bond villain times 1,000 George Soros. I won't insult your intelligence by telling you who George Soros really is, because you know. So he's been opining today. He's been bleating today, has has old Georgie boy, Soros. Right? What does the Sunday People say? Well, this will be of interest to some of our listeners. The Sunday People's headline is about Chris Spivey or Chris Spivey, whom I interviewed on this programme about 2 years ago, 2 years and a little bit over 2 years ago. Never knew the guy before then and haven't really encountered the guy since then. I have no axe to grind with him whatsoever. But I do have an opinion on what it is that he was doing. Now, the Sunday People says, Stick troll forces Lee Rigby mum to relive murder. Stick troll forces Lee Rigby mum to relive murder. Like I said, this is about Spivey. Let's say it's Chris Spivey. Can't remember how it's pronounced. So the story is 54-year-old Christopher Spivey claimed the murder of Fusilier Rigby was staged and it didn't happen and it was a hoax. Now, last week, he lost an appeal against the suspended 6-month jail sentence, which was handed down by Chelmsford Magistrates Court. Now, during the hearing, Spivey told the judge that Lee Rigby's murder was a fake event allowed to go ahead by the government, aided by the security services. Spivey repeated that, in his opinion, it was done to whip up racial hatred. But the judge, a guy called Christopher Morgan, dismissed Spivey's appeal and labelled his postings online as malicious and oppressive. He went on to add that Spivey targeted Fusilier Rigby's mother and sister and was aware of the risk they might see what he had written. This is dodgy, this, right? And I know a lot of you will be saying, you know, thought police and thought crimes. This is grey. It's not black and white, right? I wouldn't agree with him getting a 6-month jail sentence. But, I'll tell you more in a second. The judge said Spivey took no account of the fact the family were grieving. Now, rejecting the appeal, Morgan went on to say a person grieving for a child and directly involved in events would be affected. Okay? So what happened then? The judge said, in his summing up, the assertion that the murder of her son was a hoax to someone not connected with Lee Rigby might have been simply dismissed as the deluded comment of an obsessive, a conspiracy theorist, or a crank. Now, Lynn Rigby, Lee Rigby's mother, had to relive the events of her son's death. She gave evidence via video link from the Manchester area. She was visibly distressed as she spoke of feeling frightened when her address and family photographs were published by Spivey. She told the court, "We couldn't go anywhere. We were frightened to answer the door. It got to the point where my youngest was so frightened she would go around checking windows and doors 3 times before she went to bed, over and over again." Spivey published pictures of the house, photos and names of Rigby's sister Sarah MacLeod, her children, and also published information about her partner Robert Sargent. Now, I gave an opinion on this when Spivey was originally sentenced, and I'll repeat my opinion again today for what it's worth. Oh, Jesus. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Spivey was absolutely bang out of order to publish photographs of people's houses on the internet. He was bang out of order to be publishing addresses and pictures of people, Lee Rigby's sister and others, online. He was absolutely bang out of order to do that. 100% wrong. In trying to contact the family and claiming that Lee Rigby wasn't murdered and that it was all a hoax, I believe, regardless now, listen carefully before you start trolling me, wasting your time because I couldn't give a shit anyway. Regardless of what you think happened to Lee Rigby or didn't, and I don't believe the official story, but I don't know what happened to him, you see. We don't get this very much in the independent media. We get a lot of people telling you every day what they think and what they know happened, even when they don't. The official story is riddled with nonsense. What happened to him? I don't know. I suspect he was murdered by somebody. So why harass the family like that? Wasn't the brightest thing in the world to do. Should he be sent to prison for it? No. And he won't be. It was a suspended sentence. He shouldn't have been sentenced full stop. I would have warned him, severely warned him, to stay away from the family. Keep your opinions to yourself. Or, If you share your opinions with other people, keep them away from the family. They are not interested. Do you understand, Mr. Spivey? Yes, Your Honour, I do. Fine. Right? There'll be no sentence. There'll be nothing like that. You might pay a small fine. You won't do it again. I know there'll be friends of ours and listeners to this programme will disagree with that. I don't care. That's my opinion. Can't excuse the publishing of people's names, not names, but addresses and pictures. What was he doing with that? Anyway, that's Spivey, whom I have no axe to grind with whatsoever. He was on the programme over 2 years ago. We spoke about different things. Rigby came up, I think, the Rigby murder, but we didn't get into it in any great detail because he was very short on detail. Like a lot of these people are. It's a feckin' hoax, be Jesus. What? And the proof is, well, I just think it was. All right. Again, I'm not saying it wasn't or it was one way or another. Have a think about it. 21 minutes past the hour. The Richie Allen Show in the form of Sunday View for Sunday, 22nd of January 2017. We will take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Donald. Some very interesting things happening in the last 36 hours since he was inaugurated on Friday. Back in around about 90 seconds.
Do not risk putting another pound in your bank account until you've heard this message. It's Jim Rickards here, best-selling author of Currency Wars and The Death of Money. But today I'm urging you to claim a free copy of my brand new book, The Road to Ruin. Visit theroadtoruin.co.uk for full details now. Inside, I uncover the financial elite's secret ICE 9 plan to take full control of your hard-earned cash. To see how, visit theroadtoruin.co.uk right away. It's not too late to prepare. Claim your free copy at theroadtoruin.co.uk today.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
There's a place high in the mountains of Spain, a sanctuary where souls gather from all around the globe to learn about themselves and experience powerful changes in the way we see our world. They become awakened to their gifts and their power to heal others. Become part of this ever-growing worldwide family of unique, pure energy healing practitioners. Discover how amazing you truly are. Go to www.markbayerski.com. It could just change your life forever.
Welcome back. Sunday View is live 23 minutes past the hour. My name is Richie Allen. Good morning to you wherever you are in the world, wherever you are. Loads of comments, loads of tweets. A lot of you listening live today. Good Paddy O'Hare. Good morning, Paddy. To Sue, who mentions Darth Vader, presumably with respect even to Theresa May. Stevie G, good morning, Stevie. Beyond the Christian-themed veneer of Trump's inauguration, the Bible does state not to take any oaths in God's name. SOS, says Stevie. Stephen Guinness tweets out an article. Thank you, Stephen, from the New York Times about Soros and his ties to, what is it exactly? Let me have a look at that. Let me bring it up there. Soros has ties to more than 50 partners of the Women's March on Washington. That's interesting. That's in the New York Times. So these marches by these women for women's rights, I'm sure many of these women are genuine and they have the rights to march as well. And as much as I have the right to criticise them wasting their time, they have the absolute right to tell me to go and take a run and jump. Interesting article. I'll have a look at that later on, Stephen. Thank you. Soros with ties to many of the people organising the Women's March on DC. How interesting. Yeah. He's a proper little James Bond villain, Soros, isn't he? David Kona, lovies. That's what we call the actors and actresses who behave very sycophantically. But you see, I know one or two, not many, I know one or two actors and actresses, and to be absolutely fair, they are the furthest thing from sycophantic. Rebecca tweets, Women's March, nothing to do with women's rights, Richie, just a temper tantrum because they didn't get a woman president. Thanks, Rebecca. If Hillary had been elected, they wouldn't have gotten a woman president anyway. And this is not misogyny on my behalf, by the way. There is nothing feminine, nothing mothering, nothing loving, nothing caring, nothing emotional about Hillary Clinton. A woman, she ain't, in my opinion. Hi to Paul Alawi. The most infuriating aspect of the marches was that they'd not have happened if the war criminal Hillary had been elected. That's a very good point. Hi to Gail. Hi to Sue. I mentioned Sue already. Darth Vader. Joe Nicholson. Good morning, Joe. And to everybody else who's tweeting, it's lovely to know you're listening. It means getting up bright and early was worth it. God damn it. So he was inaugurated on Friday. He gave a shorter speech than is the custom, didn't he? Was it 16 or 17 minutes? That doesn't matter, really. Fair play to him. You know, people were probably pissed off. They'd queued there all day. Get over with it, man. Or get it over with, man, even. Here's Fox News' coverage of the speech. This is a little snippet from Fox News, which I think sums it up, really.
At just over 16 minutes, it was the shortest inaugural address in 4 decades and the most blistering indictment of the powerful figures seated on the dais that any newly sworn president has ever delivered.
The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land.
At times, the country's newest former president appeared to bristle at what he was hearing.
Bernie Sanders could have spoken those words. This was and he spoke those words with the entire establishment sitting there. This is a guy who overturned the two dynasties that created and built those establishments.
President Trump heralded the dawn of a new creed, a new vision, rooted in the unabashed nationalism of his reclaimed motto, America First.
Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs.
It was shocking because it was just so different from the usual blah, blah, blah. It was absolutely, totally uncompromising. It was total Trump.
Total Trump. Now, don't get too excited. I haven't changed my mind on Trump. It is, as I've said before, you know, extraordinary, and I've acknowledged this before, to hear the new president of the United States, or even a candidate for that matter, talking in these terms. You know, I'm going to go after the establishment. I'm going to go after the fat cats. And it's worth playing that little bit again, because I know Trump is the Zionist banking president. I know this now. Okay? You knew other things, Richie, that turned out not to be. Of course. There's not an ounce of ego here, me dear. But I know this. I know who he is. But it is amazing to hear that, because regardless of whether he is or isn't the Zionist banker's choice for the next 4 years, it is quite amazing. And it was amazing to hear a guy say this.
The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land.
Unprecedented. And I would say going right to the heart of why so many of our friends, who we must keep as our friends, despite the fact we are diametrically opposed to everything they think about Trump. We must not lose our friends. But this is why they fell for it. Who could blame them? I've never said they were stupid. I've never said they were sheep or any of that. I've criticised InfoWars, and I've had Mike Rivero on here, my friend Mike. I've had a go at Mike for supporting Trump. But I don't blame the people. I understand why they voted for him. Set against the lunatic criminal Hillary Clinton, you had this guy saying, I'll drain the swamp, I'll shut the borders, I'll protect your jobs, and I'll rebuild manufacturing in the US. Of course they fell for it. And of course he was so strong in the rhetoric and the bullying and the calling people names and all that crap, they loved it. Look at him, he's standing up to it. But he's not going to stand up to it. And I don't care if it upsets people who voted for them. They're going to see it in the coming weeks and months. And I'm tired of saying the same old thing. But because it's so topical, because it's so current, it must be said. He has appointed, as his Commerce Secretary, a Rothschild plant called Wilbur Ross. Okay? He put in as Secretary of State the CEO of ExxonMobil. I mean, come on. Do I even have to talk about Steve Mnuchin and Goldman Sachs? You will get, of course, the Trump diehard saying, what else could he do? He has nobody else to pick from. Tosh. Utter tosh. There are renowned economists all over the country and around the world who've never had anything to do with the big banks. He could have had a conversation with, and he could have done something differently. But that's the way it is. He's not going to do anything. So why did he say all that stuff at the inauguration, Richie? Because maybe on some level, maybe he believes it. Maybe on some level, he thinks, that I'm the president now, and I've never said the guy is evil. He's a disgusting man, I think. I've known about Trump for years and years and years, following him and his investments and his business, the business he's done in the UK, in Scotland, the things he's been doing around women. The guy is disgusting. But he's got an ego the size of the moon. Maybe he believes it. But he's surrounding himself with people, including Mike Pence. None of this is going to happen. It's not a great day for the disenfranchised in America and the worst off. It ain't. I went through his tax plan on your behalf about 5 weeks ago on the programme. This is the only thing I'm an expert on. It really is. I'm an absolute numpty at the best of times. It's why I do this programme. I know sod all. But I used to report on finance for several radio stations. I understand the terminology. His tax plan is going to benefit the top 0.5% of American wealth owners, and it's going to screw everybody else. It is. He's great. Look at him standing up to the media. He's great. Yesterday, the Donald stopped off at the headquarters of the CIA to pay his tribute. Now remember, this was a guy who at one time, only a couple of weeks ago, compared the CIA to Nazis.
I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. I think it's a disgrace. And I say that. And that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace. That information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public.
And your InfoWars and all his other supporters were thrilled. This proved that he was going against the establishment. Yeah, not quite. This was Donald yesterday.
I am with you 1,000%. And the reason you're my first stop is that, as you know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth. Right? And they sort of made it sound like I had a feud with the intelligence community. And I just want to let you know, the reason you're number one stop, it is exactly the opposite. Exactly. And they understand that too.
Well, Trump is typical of politicians in that he is a monumental liar. The media did not make it sound like there was a feud between the CIA and Donald Trump. No, they didn't. Whatever you might think of the media heavyweights in the United States, they did not. Trump did. And the people in his campaign and his staff made it look like Trump was gunning for the CIA. Now, it's my belief, and I have no proof, but I've spoken maybe 36 times over the years with Annie Machon I've spoken about the same amount of times with David Shaler. I've had CIA operatives, legends like Ray McGovern, gracing my programs for a long time. You know what they tell me, dear listener? They tell me that there is a file as long as your arms, your legs and your sister's arms and legs put together, as long as that, a file on Donald Trump and his nefarious activities over the last 30 years. And if you think they don't, have another think. They do. They do. Do you think he hasn't been photographed and filmed doing things over the years that could destroy him? Really? A billionaire who can have what he wants, women, men if he wants, young women, very young women, a womanizer? He hasn't been filmed. They don't have a file on him. Get real and wake up. Wake up. Do you think it's not... You think it's beyond the bounds of possibility that somebody spoke to him on Friday night, just as he's downing a very fine single malt Scotch whiskey, lighting a big cigar? Do you really think somebody didn't lean in his ear and say, "You're going to make good with the CIA now, Donald"? All right, yeah, I am, yeah. Remember those pictures? Yeah. We're going there tomorrow, Donald. You understand that, don't you? Yeah, we'll go there tomorrow, yeah. Get real. Get real. The establishment could have destroyed this clown in the primaries, but they chose not to. Remember that. And all the Trump worshippers think it's a great thing that he continues to rant against the media. Even yesterday at the CIA, he blamed the media. Who could argue with that, right? CNN, Fox, C-SPAN, Sky, and all the rest of them are liars. They spin out a false reality 24 hours a day, and they keep people ignorant. So when Trump goes for them, isn't it brilliant? No, it isn't. It isn't. It isn't. Why, Richie? I'll tell you why. Because what Donald Trump is calling for is fascism. We already have. Anyway. How dare any president, how dare any prime minister, how dare any secretary of state or any ministerial man or woman, how dare they decide what the media gets to say, what the media doesn't get to say, what the media can ask and what it can't act. How dare they? That is your responsibility. Your and mine as ordinary men and women. It's our responsibility to shape the media and to demand a better media. This is terrifying. Does Alex Jones and all those other goons really believe that they'll be exempt when the establishment starts to legislate against fake news? Oh, we're okay. Trump is going after CNN and Fox. Ignorance of it. The ignorance of it. Never allow power to dictate to the media, however shit that media is. Madness. Because it isn't CNN and Fox that they're after. It's us. Us. By us, I mean every single program that ever talked about 9/11 rationally and logically. Every single program that ever talked about vaccines. Every program that ever talked about the covert training, arming and funding of terrorists. That's who they want. And the fools that are cheering when Trump is going after CNN. It might be shit media, but it's our media. How is it ours? General Electric, Warner, all that, they own it. No, we own it because we watch it. We take ownership of it. It's up to us to fix it. And you fix it by turning your back on it. You don't allow billionaire goons like Trump decide what's good and what isn't in the media, what's right and what's wrong. This is sickening, this. And it's the most important aspect of all of this, and people are missing it. And what's happened to the so-called independent media anyway? It's crazy for them to be supporting Trump, ignoring questions from national media. Again, however shit that national media might be. Madness. The latest attack on the media by the Trump campaign is over the coverage of the inauguration. Trump has accused the media of dishonesty, hasn't he, over the number of people attending his inauguration. Trump said, "It looked to me like there was 1.5 million people there." Later on, the White House press secretary said it was the largest audience to ever see an inauguration period. Now, neither Trump nor the press secretary have produced any evidence to back up their claims. As I kind of phrase, I never did anything in my life, but I kind of phrase, we're in a post-evidence world, not a post-truth world. You can now claim whatever you want. No evidence. Because the media photographs from helicopters appear to show there were quite a few more people attending Barry Soetoro's inauguration back in 2009. I'm being a bit silly there. Obama. So Trump's team then, as I said, we're all over this. This is further evidence that the media are telling massive lies all the time.
Photographs of the inaugural proceedings were intentionally framed in a way, in one particular tweet, to minimize the enormous support that had gathered on the National Mall. This was the first time in our nation's history that floor coverings have been used to protect the grass in the mall. That had the effect of highlighting any areas where people were not standing, while in years past, the grass eliminated this visual. This was also the first time that fencing and magnetometers went as far back on the wall, preventing hundreds of thousands of people from being able to access the mall as quickly as they had in inaugurations past. Inaccurate numbers involving crowd size were also tweeted. No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. By the way, this applies to any attempts to try to count the number of protesters today in the same fashion. We do know a few things, so let's go through the facts. We know that from the platform where the president was sworn in to 4th Street holds about 250,000 people. From 4th Street to the media tent is about another 220,000. And from the media tent to the Washington Monument, another 250,000 people. All of this space was full when the president took the oath of office. We know that 420,000 people used the D.C. Metro public transit yesterday, which actually compares to 317,000 that used it for President Obama's last inaugural. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. Even the New York Times printed a photograph showing that a misrepresentation of the crowd in the original tweet in their paper, which showed the full extent of the support, depth, and crowd and intensity that existed. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong.
Yeah. And you see, it's a building, it's a rolling and developing steamroller against the media. And people think it's a great thing just because CNN, C-SPAN, Fox and all the rest are owned by News Corp, General Electric, Time Warner and all the rest. They don't see the bigger picture. A lot of Brexit talk in the press too today, moving swiftly on, exactly 18 minutes to the top of the hour. We will hear the Supreme Court decision on whether Theresa May must get parliamentary permission to trigger Article 50. We'll get that decision early on Tuesday morning. No Brexit talk today. I promise you. That's it. Just before we move on and talk about Prince Charles, lots and lots of tweets coming in about various things. Let me read a few of them. Spirit Samba says, so many in the alternative media have fallen for the bullshit from Trump. He doesn't give a shit about the American people. Thank you. Stephen tweets, where can I listen live in Ireland, Richie? Go to the TuneIn app, Stephen. Well, he's not listening to me, is he? Somebody tell him to go to the TuneIn app, davidike.com, or to Fab Radio 2. Sue says, excellent read, Trump. Angela, how you doing, Angela, my Italian friend? Trump's speech could fit in the Hunger Games, the capital celebrating while the districts suffer. Angela, that's good stuff. Thank you for that. The Journey tweets, Richie, but we know, as David has researched, not elected but selected by bloodline, so what's the link? Says Journey on Twitter, at Journey Greatest there. Like I said, if you want to see what other people are tweeting, go to Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Island Guy tweets, first time listening live from the Caribbean. Always a great show, Richie. Living on an island doesn't mean isolated, thanks to you. That's lovely. Lovely to know you're listening in the Caribbean, Island Guy, and I would love to be there with you. Oh yeah, you better believe it. You better believe it. Right, hi to Greg Lee. Ike in Dublin yesterday, second row, you had a full house, great day, amazing man. Even mentioned you. Keep up the super work, Richie. Thanks, Greg. I don't do anything. Remember, I do nothing except that which I enjoy, which is to interview terrific men and women and hear what they have to say. That's all I do. But thank you very much. The man you saw yesterday. These are the people doing stuff. Tommy B, how you doing, Tommy? Good morning to you as well. And Justin as well. Justin View, how you doing, Justin? Sorry if I left anybody. I am going to move on because I thought I'd be winding up now. I have quite a bit to go yet, I think. Now, Prince Charles penned a column for the Sunday Mail today. Yes, he did. And it's on climate change. Would you like me to read some of it? All right, then I won't. I'll synopsize it for you. I'll give you the gist of it. I was going to do a terrible Prince Charles impersonation. I was really up for it, but then I kind of got a bit of stage fright and I was like, don't do it then. It's not I've never been a very good... All my impressions sound the same. My Bruce Forsyth sounds the same as my Donald Trump, which sounds the same as my Maggie Thatcher. I'm not a very good impressionist. Anyway, Charles writes about the devastation of the terrible floods that continue to plague communities in the United Kingdom. And Charles points out, and you couldn't argue with him, that it takes years to recover from these floods, and that in the meantime, just as you think you're getting your dwelling, your property, your field, your house back together, there's another flood. One of the examples of overwhelming evidence that Prince Charles gives about climate change is he says that the River Thames barrier has had to be closed many more times in the last couple of years than historically. Too much CO2 in the atmosphere. We're all doomed in 30 years if we don't stop killing the planet. Blah, 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 says Prince Charles. And he's written a Ladybird book. Now, for some of our overseas listeners, Ladybird traditionally publish children's stories. And they publish lovely little books. I mean, they're lovely. I remember reading them as a child. Hansel and Gretel, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. One of my personal favourites. And other stories. But Ladybird have collaborated with the heir to the throne and written this book about CO2. Who is this guy? Well, he's Jimmy Savile's best friend, number one. Never miss an opportunity to remind people that this guy avowed on several occasions his reavowed and reaffirmed his love and friendship for and with Jimmy Savile. Think about that. So he's not a scientist. He's actually not very clever. I believe he's got a passion for organic farming, and I believe that sometimes he speaks very eloquently about his love for it, but he's not very bright. I've heard him speak on other subjects over the years. However decent his command of English is, or however plummy his accent is, he's not too clever. Why? Because of all that inbreeding. Now take the flooding that has been blamed on climate change. When I made television programmes in London with David, and shortly before that, we broke a story that the mainstream media wouldn't touch. And that is that the flooding of rivers in this country is down to one thing and one thing only. It ain't climate change. It's the European Union's fault. There you go. Ah, come on, Richie. Pull the other one, mate. No, it is. We cannot dredge the rivers in the areas worst hit by floods to the levels they need dredging. Why? Why? Because the UK Environment Agency has been restricted, wait for it, since the year 2000 even, when it adopted the EU Water Framework Directive, which seriously inhibited local authorities from dredging where and when they need to dredge. Look at the timing of that. Look it up if you don't believe me. The year 2000. What's happened since the year 2000? Well, incidents of flooding have risen exponentially. I had to look up what exponentially means. It's like a curve going upward, up and up and up and up and up. And there's no sign of it peaking and coming back down. Exponential. Yes, the European Union has stopped deep dredging of rivers. And at the same time, dear listener, you couldn't make this up, the EU policy of deregulation and privatisation meant the destruction of floodplains by private developers. You see what's going on here? But that Ike is mad. He's a nutter when he talks about they're trying to get people off rural areas and get them into cities. Give me a break. I'm sick of the lies. Flooding is not caused by climate change, and the jug-eared muppet about to take the throne sometime in the next 10 years knows this. And on that reason alone, you could have voted to leave the European Union. Now, every 6 or 8 months when this comes up, I play a couple of sound bites from a man called Ian Plimer, one of the world's most respected geologists, and somebody whom the media won't touch with a barge pole. They are terrified of him. They quake at the mention of his name. Because nobody from the scientific community has more thoroughly debunked the utter egregious bollocks that is climate change. Here is Ian Plimer talking about the sun and CO2. Not a word of this can be challenged. Listen.
I'm a geologist, and the one thing that we miss out on in looking at climate change is the past. Climates have always changed. Climate changes in the past have been greater and faster than anything we experience in our lifetime. And sea levels have always changed. Not by the modest couple of millimetres that people are having conniptions about, but we've had in the past sea level changes of only 1,500 metres. That's a sea level change. And if we look back in the history of time, the atmosphere once had a very large amount of carbon dioxide in it. It's now got less than 0.04%. Where did that carbon dioxide go to? It went into chalk, limestone, shells and life. And we've been sequestering carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere for only 2,000 to 500 million years. This planet has been degassing carbon dioxide since it first formed on that Thursday 4,567 million years ago. Carbon dioxide is a natural gas. It has dominated the atmosphere for an extraordinarily long period of time, and we now are at a dangerously low level. If we halved the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we would have no terrestrial plants. Carbon dioxide is plant food. It is not a pollutant. To use words like pollution with carbon dioxide is misleading and deceptive.
It's more than misleading and deceptive. It's dangerous and it's criminal, because there is less CO2 than ever before in the atmosphere, as he pointed out, and he's right. If we halved it, it would be catastrophic for life on planet Earth. He's right. Think about why the maniacs want to do that. Think about it just for a second. We degas through sequestration in the rocks and in the oceans. Are you listening to it? Right? This is why the guy will not be touched by mainstream media here, New Zealand or Australia. Here's a little bit more from Ian Plimer.
In the past, we've had 6 major ice ages. We are currently in an ice age. It started 34 million years ago when South America had the good sense to pull away from Antarctica, and there was a circumpolar current set up which isolated Antarctica, and we started to get the Antarctic ice sheet. We've had periods of glaciation and interglacials. We are currently in interglacial. And during that 34 million years, we have refrigerated the Earth. But for less than 20% of time, we have had ice on planet Earth. The rest of the time, it's been warmer and wetter. And there's been more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And what did life do? It thrived. 6 of the 6 great ice ages were initiated when the carbon dioxide content of the atmosphere was higher than now. In fact, up to 1,000 times higher. So we have, from the geological evidence, absolutely no evidence that carbon dioxide has driven climate.
You see, it's game over when you accept the historical evidence, which is there for everybody to see, that at times there was 1,000 times more CO2 in our atmosphere than now. Imagine the lies we are being told by jug ears and the lovely, sexy Professor Brian Cox, who was chosen deliberately because of the way he looks and because of the way he sounds, because he's cuddly and he's lovely, and half the women want to shag him, half the men want to shag him. Gorgeous, lovely smile as he's lying through his teeth. CO2 is not driving climate on this planet. The great big ball in the sky called the sun is. It's madness. My friend Jean-Anne Crowley, who was listening in Dublin, says, don't forget they neglect to mention before these so-called records began, grapes could be grown in Manchester. In fact, Yorkshire, as far north as Yorkshire, they probably could have been grown here. They might have been, for all I know, but in Yorkshire, they were growing vines. Such was the warming period. Such warming periods have happened over the millennia on planet Earth. All the evidence in the rocks. Does Jug Ears, the future King of England, know that? I don't know. As I said, he's not too bright. But it's one of the greatest lies in the world, and it's the biggest challenge we in the independent media face in the next few years because of the draconian legislation, because of the interference that is going to become more and more apparent in your lives with smart meters here and all of this technology. This is a massive issue. It couldn't be any more massive. It's 4 minutes to the top of the year. I'm going to leave you and love you. There's a few more things I could have done, but nothing really that spectacular. I want to say something I don't think I've ever said before, but I'm going to say it now. It's been a long time since I put out a donation appeal on the programme. I don't do it very often. You know the programme needs a constant source of income, stream of income to keep it going, to keep it up and running. And I ask that you go to paypal.me for me, paypal.me/Richie Allen, paypal.me/Richie Allen, or go to richieallen.co.uk. There are bank account details there, paypal.me/Richie Allen. And I want you to think about something. Now, this is in no way, I don't want this to come off as sounding like I'm patting myself on the back. I'm a chancellor. You know, I'm a guy with a big mouth who loves doing what I'm doing. But let me just give you an idea of how this day has gone so far for me. To put together the last hour of news with clips from various news sources, with references from the media, I've been at this since around about 6:30 this morning. Non-stop. I don't have an editor. I don't have a... I suppose in television you'd call him a line producer. Somebody sitting with you going through all that stuff, doing all that stuff for you. I do it. It is unbelievably difficult to do it. And I do that every single day. I'm blessed to have the help that I get from my producer, Claire Calvey. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about everything else. It's a 4-person job. And I'm doing it every single day because I love it. And why am I talking about the effort that goes into it? Because if you listen to this programme regularly and you are reasonably well off, and if you don't make a contribution every now and then, you should be ashamed of yourself. Alrighty? Leave it at that. If you listen and you can't contribute, ignore that. I love you and I'm glad you listen, and I want you to continue listening and sharing these programmes on social media. That was it. Got some cracking guests coming up this week. Jordan Maxwell is back on Tuesday. Karen Hudes tomorrow. And Claire tells me CIA officer John Kiriakou joins the programme later in the week on Thursday. Have a fabulous Sunday wherever and whomever you're going to do it with. And thanks so much for constantly listening to this programme, for getting up on your Sunday morning, and for spending some of your time with me. I'm truly humbled by it. So as I said, have a good day. You and I will talk again at 8 p.m. GMT tomorrow, Monday. Alrighty. Until then, adieu. Bye for now.
Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.